The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey folks, someone mark down in chat if you can hear me all right. Just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Okay, well I haven't heard whether you guys can hear me. I'm going to assume that you can. I'm probably going to give it just a minute or two here and make sure we've got more people signed up. We'll see if they can get into the session here. We'll start very shortly. Okay, I'm going to give it about one more minute and then we'll get things started. Okay, so conscious of the time, I'm going to get this started. And for those of you who haven't been to a Quick Takes presentation before, this is a presentation that we'll put on about a little section of the product. And the format typically is we'll spend the first 15 minutes or so talking about the subject, depending on how much subject matter there is in this particular subject. And then afterwards, if you could hold on to your questions until later when question period QA comes around, we'll go ahead and we'll answer any questions you've got. And you can just put those down in the little questions box down in your go-to client, and we'll go from there. So, my name's Adam Silver, and I've support engineer here at Metalogix. I've been working with Archive Manager for a long time. You have to excuse me today. My voice is a little hoarse. Excuse any coughings or or raspy voice I might have. Been sick this week. So we're going to talk today specifically about VBScript in Archive Manager Exchange Edition. It's going to be a pretty quick take. There's only a few scripting specific issues that we want to cover here. So our goal here is a quick overview of the most common scenarios that we see when we're encountering issues with scripting. And I want to separate very specifically, these are issues that are happening because your Outlook client cannot read VBScript. They're not an issue that's happening internal to the archive server or because the retrieve forms that we push out to Exchange are malfunctioning. This is something that's not allowing Outlook to read the actual shortcut, the archive shortcut. And of course, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. And whenever we're dealing with retrieving archived items, I like to talk about shortcuts and how they work, because there's a lot of questions out there about how shortcuts work, especially amongst some of you who are brand new to the system. I know a lot of you are old hats at it. But I'm going to flip over to my test server here, and we're going to take a look. I've got Outlook open with some test users and some shortcuts in place. And this is similar to what you might see on your Outlook clients when you have archived items. Ignore the little blue template. That's something one of the other guys is working on the test server, but it's a standard shortcut. And the important thing to realize about a shortcut, a shortcut is what happens when you've enabled your system to leave behind shortcuts. It archives the item. It leaves this little thing in Exchange called what we call archive shortcut. I used to call them stubs for some of the people that are around for longer. And typically, you'll see it looks a little different. This is an email that's not archived, and you'll see in the preview pane here, you've got the PDF, the attachment, all of the formatting, and it doesn't have that little symbol in the bottom left corner. So if you look at an archive shortcut, you're going to have the little disky symbol down in the bottom left corner, and that's an archived item. It's going to look a little different in here. And one thing you'll notice is, especially an item with an attachment, I'm going to go down and look at one specifically as an attachment. This one, it's a great one because it has inline images in the system. And you'll see that it has all the original text from the original email. And that's because what a shortcut is it is the basic text of the original email with all the formatting and attachments removed. And when you're looking at it in the preview pane in Outlook, like we are here, you're actually looking directly at the shortcut, which is a fully Exchange object. So you're not seeing any of that formatting. You're not seeing any of the images. You're only looking at the shortcut. And the proper way to open a shortcut, of course, is to double-click it. When we're looking at the preview pane, we're looking at Exchange. We double-click on the preview pane, or double-click on the email. You're actually looking at the the archive server here. So it opens up the email in the archive server. Even though to the end user it looks the same as the original email would, the format and the images and everything that's coming through into that email is coming from the archive server rather than Exchange. So, the preview pane, that's what it looks like in Exchange, full of basic text. Double-clicking, that's what it looks like in the fully functional archive retrieve. So understanding that, knowing that, the reason that the system is able to go into the archive server, pull back the formatting and the attachments is because it uses Microsoft VBScript to actually format it and set that up. Okay, so we're going to just flip back real quick into my slide here. I just wanted to sort of hit the next point over here, which is how do I know if the issue is a forms issue or a scripting issue? So you have forms sitting in Exchange that are pushing out to these Outlook clients, and the form itself has to be configured properly for an email to retrieve properly, and that's absolutely true. Usually, if it's going to be a scripting issue, you're going to see a couple of different things. You're going to see, specifically, you're going to see an issue where you cannot open the form. Now, if you go up to New Items here, and you go to More Items, and choose Form, use this just looking at your forms library, you'll see all these PAM messages. There's one for every IPM type that we typically do. Fourth one down is the one that's typical message types in archive, email types. If you click on that and hit open, and it opens fine, it should open to a blank message like this, then it's usually not the form that's at fault, because we're looking at the form right here, and the form is able to function, it's able to open, you're able to reach in and get it. So something else is messing with it, and that's usually scripting. So if you can open the form, and especially, of course, if it's the form, which is a central piece to the system, nobody should be able to open their email properly. If it's a scripting issue, it's typically one Outlook client or a couple of Outlook clients. That's another hint that you're working with a scripting issue instead of a forms issue. And we're not going to talk about forms issues today. That's going to be probably another quick take. So we're going to try to stay on topic and go specifically with scripting in this case. Okay, so there are two main issues that we run into with scripting support in Outlook clients. Three really, but I think I'm going to add that right near the end. The main one, we'll start with the less common one first, which is a scripting support on a terminal server. Now, on a Citrix server or a Microsoft terminal server, it has this weird trick where when you install Outlook in the terminal server, it by default doesn't even bother installing VBScript support. So installing Outlook on any computer client installs VBScript support as part of the Outlook client. On a terminal server, it just doesn't install it. So when you try to open up an email on a terminal server, you're actually going to find a couple things. I'm going to flip back over and I'll show you in here just as a kind of test. This mailbox does not have scripting support enabled. So we're going to take a look in there. And you'll see that when you click on it, you're going to actually double click and you're not going to see any of the formatting, any of the attachments, and you get this message at the bottom, the form cache is probably corrupt. Please clear the form cache. The form isn't working here. The scripting isn't working. And quite often with terminal servers, the easiest way to find out is pick something you know has an attachment, and you'll find that it has no attachment at all in the preview pane. And quite often it won't even have the archive symbol in the bottom left corner. So a terminal server won't naturally be able to retrieve archive mail. So how do we get around this? What we need to do is we need to get the system to install scripting support manually. We need to force it to do so. And the way to do this, few of you have probably done this on terminal servers in the past. And unfortunately, I don't have a terminal server to work with on our test environment here, but I'm going to go through the motions anyway. We can look at how it's done. So we have to open up a command prompt in Administrator. And in this case, there's actually a command we have to type in. I'm just going to drop it in real quick here. So we're going to use our MSI exec. Okay, and we go /I. And we're going to leave a blank here for now because we're going to need another piece to add into here. We'll just go, I'll put little quotes in so I know what I'm looking for. And then add local equals Outlook VBScript /QB just for a quiet install. This is the script that we need. It's just telling the system to install the VBScript component into Outlook manually. The trick is what we need here is we actually need the product code GUID, the GUID for the specific version of Outlook that we've installed. In order to find that, we need to go into the registry. We're going to click in here, and I've already got it open. I'm going to show you the path that we took to get there. And don't worry about remembering all this stuff. This will be recorded, and you'll be able to look back on our knowledge base on this whole session and see how it's done. We've also got documentation covering all this, but just to give you an idea of what the process is. So we're in local machine software, 6432 node. Now, it's sometimes in 6432 node. Sometimes it's actually not in 6432 node. It's directly in Microsoft. In this case, it is in our 6432 node, so sometimes you have to check both to find the right key. We're going to go down all the way to Microsoft and Windows. So Microsoft, Windows, and uninstall. So the uninstall registry hive within the Windows system has all these GUIDs, these codes for our different products that are installed. And you can tell the Microsoft Office ones because they all end with this OFF1CE key right here. And typically, for the most part, it's usually the first one here that's blank, but it's not always true. You'll see that over here, if you look at the display name, it'll tell us what product it is. And as we flip through them, we'll see the different products as we click down. that have been out. Some of them are updates, service packs, whatever you might have. Some of the keys are Outlook specifically. If you've installed just Outlook, some people will install all of Microsoft Office, and you'll see a joint key for Microsoft Office in there. In this case, it's this one, Outlook MUI. If you look down, you'll see that even old versions of the software that were put in place are in here as well. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I saw another Office Outlook 2010 piece in here. Sometimes you have to check multiple ones. If the first one doesn't work, you have to keep scrolling down until you find one that specifically says Microsoft Office, Microsoft Outlook, or Microsoft Outlook, the version you're working for. So usually it's this guy up here, but if that doesn't work off the bat, sometimes you have to check down to see if there's another Outlook GUID and try that. We need to copy this. So what I usually do is just click and hit rename. Be really, really careful here and copy. Just make sure you don't change any of that. So we've got this GUID. We're going to go into our command prompt, and where I put these quotes in, that's where we actually need the GUID. So the ID goes here. I'm going to paste that in. And so here we've got our full command. So our exec, we're installing, we've got the GUID for Outlook. We're adding Outlook VBScript and the install quiet commands. This isn't going to work on this system because it's not a terminal server. It's only going to work on a terminal server, but what's going to happen is when we run it, you'll see the installer start. That's going to run in. It's going to run into an error in my case because it's not a terminal server. When you run this on a terminal server, the little installer that's running in the background there will say it's configuring Microsoft Outlook. It'll run through its thing and it'll say configuration complete. After that, you're in business. You should be able to go in and open up archived mail as normal with a terminal server. So I'm just going to shut that down. And also, since I'm not on a terminal server, again, I couldn't demonstrate this specifically on a terminal. I made a copy of the error you'll see. This is usually actually pretty specific to the terminal server error. If you run into this specific one, Microsoft Outlook cannot provide form scripting support. It's usually this specific issue you're running into with the terminal server. It's the only time we really see that error. So now to the second and by far the most common issue with scripting and not being able to see scripting. So I've got my main inbox here, and I've opened up Outlook, and I've opened it up under a profile that's using test user 1. This is test user 1's inbox. And you'll see that in this one, we can open up the archive mail. I've got no problem formatting, putting together all that stuff. Now, if we go into our profile and bring in another mailbox, so, just your standard shared mailbox, whether you want to look at somebody's looking at one of their team's mail, or they have a shared mailbox that the whole team uses. And I brought in test user 2 to look at here on the same profile. And in Outlook, they call this a shared mailbox. So you'll notice if I look at test user 2 and I go into their inbox, they've got archive mail as well. But if I click on it, and I'll go to this one down here because I know I've got an attachment here. You'll notice right away in the preview pane there's no attachment at all. I'm going to double click on it, and we get no attachment. We get this error, clear the form cache. It's just not working at all. We try to click on the other ones, we'll get the same thing. Please clear the form cache. And the reason for this is that Outlook by default does not allow scripting in shared folders that are brought in. It only allows scripting by default on the primary mailbox for that profile. So, excuse me, let me show you how to fix this. In Outlook, we go over to File, Options, and this counts for 2013, 2010, 2007. It's all in File Options, in the Options menu. On the left side, we're going to find Trust Center, down the bottom left, and Trust Center Settings. Trust Center Settings, we've got an Email Security tab. Click on that, and you'll see these two little guys at the bottom, Script in Folders. We've got Allow Script in Shared Folders and Public Folders. I'm going to click off Allow Script in Shared Folders because we've got a shared mailbox that we're using. We're going to allow that, run through. And you'll see now, when I click into these, we now have the attachment and the full email formatting in place. And it's that simple. It's just a matter of flipping the flag in Outlook and allowing it to use script in the shared folder. You can see even in here, we're missing the images in the shortcut in Exchange. When we double click, it formats it and brings in line the images. Okay, so, and you saw again in the menu we were just in for public folders, and I've set up a test for that. So I've got a public folder here, and I threw a couple of emails in there, and we've got an archived email here. These guys aren't archived, so they open up no problem. The archived email, the shortcut we try to open, same problem, clear the cache, doesn't work. So we're going to have to go into the same place, File, Options, Trust Center Settings, Email Security, and again, allow script in public folders. So these two guys are going to allow you to do that. And by the way, if this is something you want to set up for everybody, we do have a GPO setting for this. There's a GPO you can download and set it up, and we've got some documentation on how to do that in our knowledge base as well. So we're going to allow that. And now in the same email, we can open that up, and we don't have the caching errors. We've got the attachment. So that's all in place. So the only other issue that I would say, and I kind of didn't really put this down in the PowerPoint, and I would actually even add it in here, is a corrupt forms cache. And this does happen on Outlook clients quite a bit. Outlook keeps a forms cache locally that sometimes can go corrupt, and if it does go corrupt, it does affect even the forms that we use centrally on the Exchange server. So the way to fix that is in here as well. You just want to clear the forms cache. And the cache is expendable. It can be rewritten every time you start Outlook. So it's not actually affecting the system, but what you would do is go to Options, Advanced, down to Custom Forms right here, Manage Forms, and there's like a little clear cache button here. If you click this and you've got a corrupt forms cache, it'll rebuild it. It'll bring it all back in, and it should clear up that issue. The clears cache button, when you press it, doesn't do anything. It doesn't have a bar or anything. It shows you progress, which is kind of annoying, but you got to trust it. It does do it. So we close that up. We would hit OK, and restart Outlook in this case, and that would clear up the issue if all other situations were off the table. So those are the basic scripting support errors we see in the archive system. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions, and if you've got a question, just type it down in the little questions field, and I'll try to keep up best I can. Just looking down right now. Okay, let's see if someone put one in already. And George thought it was called a pointer. You know what? I've heard people call shortcuts 1,000 things. We used to, in the old days, we called them stubs, and the official term that we use now is shortcuts. But you know, usually if someone has their own colloquial term for one, we get it, and we'll work with them on that. So any questions about the scripting stuff we run into, the terminal servers, the shared folders, the correct cache, the public folders? No questions at all? I'll give it a minute, see if anyone comes up with anything. We've got a little bit of time here, so. Yeah, Darren's talking about proxies and having to bypass NIE in order to get through a retrieve. That's that's more of a proxy issue. I don't want to get too deep into that right now because we're specifically focusing on scripting errors on the Outlook side. But there's all sorts of other challenges around shortcuts that come down to the way the forms are configured in the first place, DNS changes, proxies. Again, I think we're going to do another quick take about forms specifically, the other side of things, when the problem is at the archive server end, not the Outlook end, at some point as well. And if you run into something really kind of unique like that, it's always worth opening up a case, and we can touch base with you that way, because there are a lot of different environments out there and a lot of different moving parts in this. The GPOs, just open up a case, and we'll send you a document that's got the GPO, and it's got all that in place. I believe it's also in the knowledge base itself. If you look for the GPOs for the system, for the shared folders and stuff, it's in there. The document is, I believe, called, let me just double check that, but it's called Opening or Allowing VBScript in Shared Mailboxes and Public Folders. And yeah, again, we can get to that document. It goes over the install, the GPO locations, and all those pieces. And as well, this piece will probably be this quick take might be tagged onto the same item in our knowledge base. It is a download. You have to go download an extra GPO piece for the specific Outlook you're running, and just go find it. We've got the names for them. And same with you, Jose. I mean, just open up a case specifically asking for the GPO install stuff, and we'll get that to you. Okay, guys, so if there's no more questions, I'm going to wrap that up. And again, all this stuff, I know a lot of these things are settings within Outlook and multiple steps. We have all this stuff documented, and even this video itself of this meeting is going to be in the knowledge base as well in the next week or two. And you'll be able to access that and all the documents. And if you run into anything outside the realm of this, or you try working on what we were just talking about and it doesn't work, you can always open up a new case. Let us know. We're always happy to get in there and see what we can figure out with you. And thanks for coming in and coming to the quick take. And sorry I could barely speak here, but I hope you had some useful information, and I hope you guys keep coming back to more quick takes. We love doing them. And yeah, if you have any other issues, any other questions, make sure to contact us and let us know. We'll talk to you all later. Bye now.